Okay, you're recording, right? Ron Patel, comic book movie. Hi Andrew, how are you?
Good, fine. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I love your movies, so this is a great honor to talk to you.
Oh,
Um, but I saw that a lot of the movie was actually sort of rewritten on the fly when you were shooting. So how much actually how much were you and Harrison, the writer, kind of like thinking of on the day of what was sort of capable, or what was sort of the process behind the decisions you made when you were making the movie?
well, there were several parts to that. First of all, the original script I got had to be rewritten quite a bit because it didn't quite make sense to me. And so we came up with this drug protocol as the reason that Harrison was going to be in trouble and while they wanted to shut him up. So once we accomplished that, it was a question of how to take the certain elements that were already there, like the train crash and this jump off the dam and the action pieces that David Toohey had put in there. But the day-to-day word-to-word things, you know, we Jeb Stewart did a great job of trying to navigate between what the realities were that we were shooting and what was happening on the set. But Tommy Lee and I had done a lot of improvisation on Under Siege. And so Tommy Lee and Harrison and I and all of the marshals, all the different actors, I gave them an opportunity to contribute to what was going on as we go to the set. We try to talk through the scene, took what was on the page, and embellished it every day. So there's some of the great lines in the movie are things that were made up on the spot. Get me a chocolate donut with the sprinkles on top if you want to think up something, that kind of stuff.
Awesome. And then there are so many. I did see that film was shot in North Carolina, where I'm currently in North Carolina, so that's very and so was much of before you moved to Chicago, obviously, but was the initial plan sort of to film more in North Carolina, or was that something where you guys were like, we have an opportunity to shoot in Chicago, so let's make it a little more grandiose, I guess?
Oh no, Chicago was definitely the first location, the main location. The story
Hmm.
set in Chicago. And the only reason we went to North Carolina was because Peter McGregor Scott, my partner and producer, found this train track that we could control. It had a dam nearby that we could use. So the train crash and the dam and the chase from the hospital, those are the sequences that were shot in North Carolina. And everything else was done in Illinois.
I gotcha. Sorry.
But
And
that train is still sitting there on the side of
yeah,
the, it's
I
a
have
tourist.
friends sort of near that area, so I've heard about it, plenty of stories.
Asheville's a very hip area now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so you're working with Harrison Ford and you're working with Tommy Lee Jones, both at like sort of like the peak of their powers. And then what's sort of your collaboration with them as the director, working with these two stars that are playing these two very unique, sort of iconic roles now. And like what kind of input are you taking from them? What kind of input are you giving them? What's that kind of back and forth?
You try to create an environment where they can do their best work, to keep it real, to have the setting have an honesty. Harrison hung out with, it was introduced and hung out with some real doctors from the University of Chicago. He met another doctor he modeled his whole apartment after this doctor we met one night in a restaurant who was friends with a friend of ours. And Tommy Lee, hung out with these young marshals and understood what his role was going to be as a kind of mentor to them. So, I didn't have to give a lot of direction other than make the scene real and accomplish what the story had to be told every day. I didn't tell somebody how to hold the apple a certain way. It was more how to stage things with cameras moving all the time. The steady camera is being used all the way through the hospital. It's through Harrison's journey in the woods and everything. So it was a question of how to make it visual, and I shoot a lot of footage, and I had a lot of coverage. So the editors had the ability to make the pace really move and to really not be static and stay, to keep the flow of the movie going. You're on the move. You're in the chase.
Some and then so like there's such I was rewatching it the other night and there's such like a sort of timeless feel. Like obviously it's set in the early 90s, but it feels like, it's a present the story feels very relatable even today. So do you see what is your sort of opinion on like could you see studios pivoting back toward making more films like The Fugitive versus these 200, $300 million blockbusters they've been making, or is that sort of maybe a bygone era at this stage?
I don't know. I don't know. I think, if this movie came out tomorrow, uh, if they re-released this movie to audiences who never saw it before, it would be a hit today.
Mhm.
It works. It still keeps people enthralled. They care about the characters. The pace and the style of the movie does not feel dated at all. And so there's no reason when, I was reading an interview I did, and talked about how Bob Daly and Terry Semmel, who were the heads of Warner Brothers at the time, said, we don't need to hit home runs every time. We're happy with doubles. Well, this was a double that became a home run.
Mhm. Absolutely. No, my brother watched it for the first time and he loved it too. So, and I love that obviously there's the I didn't kill my wife scene with that encounter. So what was your sort of experience filming that scene in the dam? Because I don't know, how are you piecing it together? Yeah, I think they're two different locations, but and you just kind of splice them together. Can you break down that sort of sequence?
Well, the dam was actually a real dam. We built a set piece, which is the end of the tunnel, so that they could be standing over that huge drop and make it real. Everybody was wired in when we were doing that. But the actual dam itself, the tunnels we built on an old steel fabricating plant in Chicago, and had all the water running through it. So we were piecing things together, and we knew from what we had shot in North Carolina what we had to do in Chicago.
Somewhat. And then you also have like the train scene, which I believe is like one shot. I think it's like there's a lot of meticulous planning that goes into filming that train sequence. So how much sort of planning went into it to arrive to the day where I believe, at least I read that you shot it in one take.
Well, we only could crash a train once. We didn't have a second
Mhm.
train. It would have taken months to pull all that stuff apart and find another train. So it was a one-shot deal. And we placed, 13, 20 cameras everywhere. So we had all kinds of coverage. And it was engineered. We actually pushed the train from behind. There was no engine in the locomotive. And Roy Arbogast and Peter McGregor-Scott worked out how to have it fall off exactly the tracks where it needed to fall off and crash into a house that would blow up and things like that. So having a real train laying there the next day as a memory of what happened the night before, I thought was fantastic. Because if we would have do all that digitally, it would not look as good and not be as real. And so it took a lot of planning, and yet it came off exactly as we planned it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It still holds up. And thank you so much for your time, Andrew. I love a lot of your films, Holes and Collateral Damage and The Guardian. So this is really thrilled. But obviously, The Fugitives it's just freaking awesome. So thank you so much for your time, Andrew.
Look up Stony Island, my first film. It just got re-released. Okay.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.